The massive space station hung in the darkness like a giant wheel of light. Inside its halls, representatives from 47 different alien species gathered for another meeting of the Galactic Council. The air buzzed with different languages, translated instantly by advanced technology. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through the chamber, some walking, some floating, some crawling on multiple legs. HFY stood near the back of the human delegation area. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her black hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her face showed no emotion as she watched the chaos around her. She had learned to hide her feelings during these meetings. 3 years ago, humanity had been invited to join the council. 3 years of being treated like children at the adults' table. "They're staring again," Deho whispered beside her. He was her security detail and oldest friend. They had grown up in the same neighborhood back on Earth. Now they stood together on a station millions of miles from home. "Let them stare," HFY replied quietly. "We belong here as much as they do." But she knew the truth. Most species here did not think humans belonged at all. Humans were small compared to many races. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently figured out faster-than-light travel, and even that was with help from friendly aliens. The meeting was called to order. A towering figure stepped forward to the center platform. This was High Commander Thex of the Vrelkari race. The Vrelkari stood 9 feet tall with thick, armored skin that looked like stone. They were the galaxy's most feared warriors. For 2,000 years they had led the Galactic Defense Force. Thex's voice boomed through the chamber. "Today we discuss the expansion of the Defense Force. We need more warriors to protect our borders. The Chromath may be gone, but new threats always emerge." Several species volunteered their forces. The Vrelkari approved most of them quickly. Then Jisoo, the human science advisor, raised her hand. She was young, barely 30, with bright eyes full of hope. "The human delegation wishes to offer our military forces to the Defense Force," Jisoo said clearly. The chamber fell silent. Then laughter erupted from multiple corners. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind adults make when a child says something silly. Thex looked down at the human delegation. His face was hard to read, but his tone was clear. "Humans in the Defense Force? Your species is barely capable of defending a single planet. Your bodies are weak. Your lifespans are short. You have no natural weapons. What could you possibly offer?" HFY felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "We offer what we have always offered. Determination, creativity, and the will to protect what we care about." "Pretty words," Thex rumbled. "But wars are not won with words. They are won with strength. Show me a human who can match a Vrelkari warrior, and perhaps I will consider your request." The other species murmured in agreement. Some looked at the humans with pity. Others looked with barely hidden contempt. The message was clear. Humans were welcome to attend meetings and vote on small matters. But real galactic affairs, the business of war and protection, was for real warriors. Deho shifted beside HFY. She could feel the tension in his body. He had been a soldier before becoming her guard. She knew he wanted to speak, to defend their species, but this was her job. "We understand your concerns," HFY said. "We are new here. We have not proven ourselves yet. But every species in this chamber was new once. Every species had to earn their place. We only ask for the chance to do the same." Thex seemed to consider this. Then he nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but not today. This matter is closed." The meeting moved on to other topics. HFY stood quietly, her mind racing. Around her, other species discussed trade routes and resource sharing. Important matters, but not why they had come here. Humanity needed a place in the Defense Force, not for glory, but for survival. If humans could not prove their worth, they would always be the weak ones. The ones everyone else had to protect. The ones who depended on alien charity. That night, back in their quarters, the human delegation met in private. Deho paced the room like a caged animal. Jisoo reviewed data on her tablet. Young Jay, their engineer, worked on some equipment in the corner. "They will never accept us," Deho said bitterly. "Not unless we do something dramatic." "We need time," Jisoo argued. "We can prove our worth through science, through innovation." "Time is what we don't have," HFY said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "The galaxy is changing. We all feel it. Something is coming. And when it does, we need to be ready. We need to be part of the defense force, not begging for protection. She looked at each of her team members. Thex wants proof. So we'll give him proof. One way or another, we'll show them what humans can do. None of them knew that their chance would come sooner than they thought. The summons came early the next morning. HFY was still drinking her coffee when her communicator buzzed. The council wanted to see the human delegation immediately. Something about a formal matter that required their presence. When they arrived at the council chamber, the atmosphere was different, tense, excited. The various species clustered in groups, whispering among themselves. At the center of the room stood Thex and another Vralkari warrior. This one was slightly smaller but looked even more dangerous. His armor bore the marks of countless battles. Humans, Thex called out when he saw them. Come forward. HFY led her team to the center platform. She kept her face neutral, but her heart was pounding. Whatever this was, it felt like a trap. This is Drac, my second in command, Thex announced. He is one of our finest warriors. He has fought in 30 campaigns across the galaxy. Thex paused, and something like a smile crossed his stone-like face. Drac has issued a formal challenge. According to Vralkari tradition, any species claiming warrior status must prove it in combat. The duel is to first blood. First to wound the opponent wins. The chamber erupted in excited chatter. HFY's mind raced. A duel. They were being challenged to a duel. Against a trained Vralkari warrior. It was insane. Humans were half their size and had none of their natural armor. We did not claim warrior status, HFY said carefully. We only asked to serve in the defense force. Same thing, Thex replied. So here is your chance. Send your best fighter. If a human can draw first blood from Drac, we will consider your request seriously. If not, this matter is settled forever. Do you accept? HFY looked at her team. Jisu's face was pale. Young Jay looked worried. But Deho stepped forward before she could speak. I accept the challenge, Deho said loudly. No, HFY hissed at him. You can't. Someone has to, Deho replied quietly. And I'm the only one here with combat training. You know that? He was right. Deho had been special forces before joining the diplomatic corps. If anyone had a chance, it was him. But a chance against a Vralkari warrior? That was almost no chance at all. Very well, Thex announced. The human accepts. The duel will take place tomorrow in the honor arena. All species are invited to witness. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Jisu buried herself in research, pulling up every file about Vralkari physiology and combat techniques. Young Jay disappeared into his workshop. HFY tried to talk Deho out of it 3 times. 3 times he refused. This is why we came here, Deho told her that evening. They sat alone in the observation deck watching stars drift past. Not to be safe. Not to make friends. To prove that humans deserve their place in the galaxy. You could die, HFY said. It's to first blood, not to the death. I'll be fine. Drac could accidentally kill you with 1 hit, Deho smiled. Then I'll have to make sure he doesn't hit me. Young Jay found them an hour later. He carried a long case. I made some modifications to your ceremonial blade, he explained to Deho. Nothing illegal. Just good earth steel, folded and treated the way my grandfather taught me. It's sharper than anything the Vralkari have seen. Deho opened the case. The blade inside gleamed like silver water. It was beautiful and deadly. Thank you, he said simply. Jisu arrived with her research. The Vralkari have thick armor everywhere except their joints and palms, she explained, showing them diagrams. Their palms have to be flexible for gripping weapons. It's the only exposed flesh, but reaching a Vralkari's palm in combat is nearly impossible. They keep their hands closed or behind their shields. Nearly impossible isn't the same as impossible, Deho said, studying the images. That night, HFY couldn't sleep. She kept imagining the duel, kept seeing Deho broken and bleeding on the arena floor. They had been friends since childhood. They had joined Earth's military together, served together, nearly died together on 3 different occasions. Now he was walking into a fight that everyone expected him to lose. She found him in the training room at midnight. He was moving through combat forms, his new blade singing through the air. He moved like water, fast and flowing. But would it be enough? Can't sleep either? He asked when he noticed her. I should be the one fighting, HFY said. I'm the ambassador. This is my responsibility. No, Deho said firmly. Humanity needs you alive. You're our voice here. I'm just the guy who stands behind you and looks tough. You're my best friend. I know. That's why I'm doing this. He sheathed the blade and looked at her seriously. Win or lose tomorrow, we're showing them that humans don't back down. That has value too. The next morning, the entire council gathered at the honor arena. It was a massive transparent sphere in the center of the station. Inside, two fighters would battle while thousands watched from all sides. HFY took her seat in the human section. Her hands were shaking. Drac entered first, wearing his battle armor and carrying two large Valkyrie blades. The crowd cheered. Then Deho walked in, looking impossibly small in his simple combat suit, carrying young Jay's blade. The crowd fell silent. Thex's voice boomed across the arena. Let the duel begin. Deho bowed respectfully. Drac charged. Drac moved like a landslide. For something so large and armored, he was terrifyingly fast. His first swing would have cut Deho in half if it had connected. But Deho wasn't there anymore. He had rolled to the side, coming up in a crouch several feet away. The Valkyrie warrior turned, his eyes tracking the human. Around them, thousands of aliens watched in silence. HFY gripped the armrests of her seat so hard her knuckles turned white. Jisoo sat beside her, barely breathing. Drac attacked again, a series of heavy strikes that would have overwhelmed any opponent through sheer power. But Deho didn't try to block or match strength with strength. Instead, he moved. He ducked under one blade, sidestepped another, rolled away from a third. He made himself hard to hit using the arena's space, staying just out of reach. He's running, someone in the crowd muttered. The human is running away. But HFY saw what Deho was doing. He wasn't running. He was learning. Each attack taught him something about Drac's style, his patterns, his timing. Deho had always been like this in combat. Patient, observant, waiting for the right moment. Drac was getting frustrated. HFY could see it in the way his attacks became wilder, less controlled. The Valkyrie were used to opponents who fought back with power. They weren't used to someone who simply refused to be where they struck. Stand and fight, Drac roared, his voice echoing through the arena. Deho said nothing. He just kept moving, his blade still unbloodied. Minutes passed, then 5 minutes, then 10. Drac was breathing harder now. His armor was heavy, and he had been swinging those massive blades nonstop. Then Deho made his first real attack. It was just a quick slash at Drac's leg joint, easily blocked. But it made Drac shift his stance. Another quick strike at the other side, also blocked. Deho was testing defenses now, looking for openings. The crowd leaned forward. This was getting interesting. Drac changed tactics. Instead of wild swings, he began using his reach advantage, keeping Deho at a distance with precise thrusts. This was more dangerous. Deho had to work harder to stay safe. He took a small cut on his shoulder when he moved a fraction too slow. Blood appeared on his uniform. First blood to Drac, someone shouted, but Thex's voice cut through the noise. First blood means a wound that matters. A scratch does not count. Continue. Deho glanced at his shoulder. The cut was shallow, barely more than a scrape. He nodded and refocused on Drac. Now the Valkyrie had the advantage. He knew he could hit the human. It was only a matter of time, but Deho smiled. That small smile that HFY knew well, the smile that meant he had figured something out. Deho began talking. You're very skilled, he called out to Drac. I can see why you're second in command. Drac swung at him. Deho dodged. How long have you been fighting? Decades, centuries. Another swing. Another dodge. I bet you've never lost a duel. Everyone must respect you. Fear you even. Drac's attacks came faster, angrier. Good. Angry opponents made mistakes, but you can't hit me properly, can you? A weak little human and you can't land a real strike, Drac roared and charged. This was what Deho had been waiting for. The Valkyrie warrior came in with both blades. A massive overhead strike designed to overwhelm any defense. There was no room to dodge left or right. The only way was back. Deho didn't move back. He moved forward inside the range of the blades. It was insane. Suicidal. The blades came down and everyone thought they were about to watch a human die. But Deho had timed it perfectly. He slid under Drac's arms as they came down, so close he could smell the alien's breath. The blade struck the arena floor behind him with a tremendous crash. For one instant, Drac's arms were extended, his hands open from the impact. Deho moved like lightning. His blade flashed once, a precise cut across Drac's palm. The Valkyrie's skin was tough, but young Jay's earth steel was sharper than anything they had. Blood welled up deep red against gray skin. Time seemed to stop. Deho stepped back, his blade held ready. Drac looked at his palm, at the blood dripping from it. Then he looked at the small human standing before him. The arena was completely silent. Then Thex's voice rang out, slow and deliberate. First blood to the human. The silence broke. Some species cheered. Others argued. The Vrelkari delegation looked shocked. But Drac did something unexpected. He bowed. A deep, respectful bow. "You fight like wind," Drac said, his voice carrying across the arena. "Formless everywhere, nowhere. I have fought many warriors, but I have never fought anyone like you." Deho bowed back. "You are a great warrior. Thank you for the honor of this duel." Thex stepped into the arena. He examined Drac's palm, then looked at Deho's blade. "Some will say you used tricks. That the blade was poisoned or enhanced with technology." Young Jay stood up in the crowd. "That blade is pure steel from Earth, no poison. No technology. Just good craftsmanship. You can test it. They did test it. Every scanner available confirmed it was exactly what Young Jay said. Simple steel. Sharp, yes, but nothing illegal or enhanced." Thex turned to Haywan. "Your warrior has won the duel fairly. This deserves consideration." "He has a name," Haywan said, standing. "Deho. And he is not just my warrior. He is my friend, my colleague, and a representative of everything humans can be." Thex studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "The humans have earned a trial position in the Defense Force. We will evaluate your performance over the next standard year." It wasn't everything they wanted, but it was a start. As they left the arena, other species looked at them differently now. Not with contempt or pity, but with something new. Curiosity. Perhaps even respect. Deho limped beside Haywan, tired and bruised. "That was harder than I expected," he admitted quietly. "But you won." "We won," he corrected. "All of us together." They didn't know it yet, but the real test was still to come. 3 weeks after the duel, humanity received its orders. They were assigned to the Defense Force's 7th Fleet as support personnel. Not frontline fighters, not even reserve combat units. Support. It meant staying back while others did the real fighting. Commander Sora led the human military contingent. She was a decorated officer from Earth's Space Navy, tough and smart. When she read the assignment, she crumpled the datapad in frustration. "Support roles," she spat. "After everything, they still think we can't fight." "It's a start," Haywan reminded her during their secure call. "We have to prove ourselves gradually." "I didn't join the fleet to gradually prove anything," Sora replied. But she accepted the orders. They all did. What choice did they have? The 7th Fleet was massive. Ships from a dozen different species all working together. The Vrelkari provided heavy warships. The insectoid Quillan species offered their fast scouts. The crystalline Shrock contributed their powerful energy weapons. Humans provided medical support, supply coordination, and technical repairs. Important work, but not glorious. For 2 weeks, the fleet conducted routine patrols along the Outer Rim territories. Sora drilled her people constantly. If they ever got the chance to fight, she wanted them ready. Her crew thought she was paranoid. Then the emergency beacon arrived. A colony world called Theta Outpost sent a desperate signal. They were under attack. The message cut off mid-transmission, but the last words were clear. They're everywhere. Moving so fast. Can't stop them. It's the Chromath. The Fleet Command Center erupted in chaos. The Chromath had been extinct for 200 years. Everyone knew the story. They were an insectoid species that had tried to conquer the galaxy. The combined forces of 20 species had destroyed their homeworld and wiped them out completely. Or so everyone thought. Admiral Vox, a 4-armed alien who commanded the fleet, issued immediate orders. Battle stations. All ships. We jumped to Theta Outpost in 1 hour. The fleet emerged from hyperspace into a nightmare. Theta Outpost was a small mining colony built on an asteroid. It should have housed 5,000 workers from various species. Now it was covered in dark moving shapes. Ships, thousands of them, swarmed around the colony like angry insects. "Deploy all combat units," Vox ordered. "Vrelkari warships engage the enemy fleet. Quillan scouts identify weak points. All species standard formation." The battle began badly. The Chromath ships were small and fast, made from some kind of biological material that seemed to heal damage. When the Vrelkari fired their heavy weapons, they destroyed dozens of enemy ships, but hundreds more took their place. The Chromath didn't fight like a normal fleet. They fought like a living swarm, all parts moving as one. The Quillen scouts tried flanking maneuvers. The Chromath adapted instantly, shifting their formation to counter. The Shrek fired their energy beams in coordinated patterns. The Chromath scattered and reformed in seconds. Every tactic the fleet tried, the enemy had an answer for. Worse, the Chromath were learning. After the Vrelkari used their heavy cannons 3 times, the swarm developed a new formation that minimized the damage. When the Quillen tried a 4th flanking attack, the Chromath were waiting for them. 2 Quillen ships were destroyed before they could retreat. "They're adapting to our tactics," Vox said, disbelief in his voice. "I've never seen anything adapt this fast." Sora watched from her ship, the human carrier that stayed at the back of the formation. Her crew sat at their stations, trained and ready, but not allowed to engage. "We could help," she muttered. "We're support only," her second officer reminded her. "Those are the orders." "Orders won't matter if we lose," Sora replied. The battle continued for 3 hours. The fleet lost 6 ships, hundreds of warriors from various species died, and they hadn't even reached the colony yet. The Chromath swarm protected it completely, adjusting their tactics faster than the fleet could plan. Then Vox's flagship took a direct hit. Multiple Chromath ships had coordinated an attack on his engines. The flagship went dark, floating helplessly while the swarm closed in. Sora made her decision. "All human ships, this is Commander Sora. Prepare for combat deployment." "Commander, we don't have authorization," her officer protested. "People are dying. The flagship is disabled. We have weapons and trained crews. That's all the authorization I need." She opened a channel to the fleet. "Human forces requesting permission to engage the enemy." Static answered her. Vox's ship was too damaged to respond. The other species were too busy fighting. No one confirmed or denied her request. "Consider that a yes," Sora said. "All ships break formation. Attack pattern Delta." The human ships moved. They were smaller than the Vrelkari warships, less advanced than the Shrek vessels, not as fast as the Quillen scouts. But they moved with purpose, with coordination, with something the Chromath hadn't seen yet. They moved unpredictably. Instead of the rigid formations the other species used, the human ships spread out irregularly. Instead of coordinated volleys, they fired at random intervals. Instead of targeting the largest concentrations of enemies, they hit small groups on the edges of the swarm. The Chromath tried to adapt. But adaptation required patterns, and the humans weren't following any pattern. One moment, human ships would cluster together. The next, they'd scatter. They'd attack from one direction, then suddenly appear from another. They used tricks, feints, false retreats. "What are they doing?" one of the alien commanders asked over the open channel. "They're confusing the hive mind," another replied, wonder in their voice. Sora's ship led a strike team to the flagship. 3 human vessels, moving fast and erratic, drew the Chromath away from Vox's disabled ship. When the swarm moved to intercept, the humans scattered. When the swarm tried to surround them, the humans broke through in unexpected directions. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't traditional warfare, but it worked. The human ships reached the flagship and formed a protective screen. Sora herself led a boarding team to help evacuate the crew. They found Vox on his bridge, injured but alive. "You disobeyed orders," Vox said weakly as human medics worked on him. "Yes, sir," Sora replied. "But you're alive to court-martial me later." Vox actually laughed at that, then winced in pain. "Get everyone to safety, then show these Chromath what else humans can do." By the time night fell on the battlefield, the situation had stabilized. The fleet hadn't won, but they hadn't lost either. And everyone was talking about the humans. The small species nobody expected much from had turned the tide, at least temporarily. But this was just one battle. The Chromath had attacked 3 other colonies. The war was far from over, and humanity had just announced themselves as players in a game they barely understood. 2 days after the first battle, the Chromath attacked Theta Station itself. This wasn't another colony. Theta Station was a major supply hub that serviced half the outer rim. If it fell, the entire sector would collapse. The fleet had no choice but to defend it with everything they had. The station was huge, a city in space with multiple levels and thousands of inhabitants. When the Chromath swarm arrived, they didn't just attack the station. They boarded it. Thousands of insect warriors poured through breached airlocks and damaged hull sections. Admiral Vox, recovered enough to command from a secondary ship, coordinated the defense. All ground forces deploy to the station. Hold every level. We cannot let them take the central core. The Vralkari were the first to respond. Their warriors were bred for close combat, and they charged into the station's corridors with fierce determination. But the Chromath were ready. In the tight spaces of the station, the Vralkari's size became a disadvantage. The Chromath swarmed them, attacking from all sides at once. The Quillen tried next, using their multiple limbs to fight in the zero-gravity sections. But the Chromath adapted, learning to anticipate their movements. Within hours, the situation was desperate. The aliens were being pushed back level by level. Commander Sora requested permission to deploy human ground forces. This time she went through proper channels. Denied, came Thex's response. He had taken over tactical command from his hospital bed. The humans already risked themselves in space. We cannot ask them to fight on the ground as well. They are too valuable to lose. Sora's jaw tightened. Too valuable meant too weak. They were being protected like children again. She opened a private channel to Lieutenant Taman, her ground force commander. Taman, what's your status? Locked and loaded, Commander. My team is ready. Thex denied deployment. There was a pause. Then Taman said, With respect, Commander, I'm not hearing you clearly. There's a lot of interference on this channel. If you were to order us to deploy, I might not receive the order not to deploy. Sora smiled despite the situation. There's definitely interference, Lieutenant. I'm ordering you to deploy to Theta Station, Level 7. Hold that position at all costs. Copy that, Commander. We'll hold or we'll die trying. Lieutenant Taman led 300 human soldiers into Theta Station. They were lightly armored compared to the Vralkari, armed with kinetic weapons that seemed primitive compared to energy weapons. But they moved with purpose. Level 7 was a maze of corridors, storage rooms, and maintenance shafts. The Chromath had taken most of it. Taman studied the station maps and made quick decisions. We're not holding corridors, he told his team. We're fighting smart. Teams of 5, no larger. Use the vents, the maintenance tunnels, anywhere the Chromath don't expect. We hit them and disappear. We make them afraid to move. Guerrilla tactics? One of his officers asked. Earth tactics, Taman replied. These bugs think they're hunters. Let's teach them what it's like to be prey. The humans split into small teams and vanished into the station's infrastructure. They knew something the Chromath didn't. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters on Earth. They could track, hide, and strike with patience that frustrated faster predators. Now they used those same instincts in space. A Chromath squad moved through a corridor scanning for enemies. They walked past a vent. 5 humans dropped down behind them, fired precise shots, and disappeared back into the vents before reinforcements arrived. The Chromath tried to follow. The humans had already moved to a different section. In another area, humans used sound. They played recordings of human voices in empty rooms, drawing Chromath forces into ambushes. They used mirrors and lights to create confusion. They even told jokes over the station speakers, making the Chromath waste time trying to understand if it was some kind of code. Why are the humans laughing? One confused alien commander asked over the shared channel. People are dying and they're making jokes? But Taman knew what he was doing. Fear and stress broke warriors. Humans had learned long ago that humor, even dark humor, kept people sane in impossible situations. His soldiers weren't being disrespectful. They were surviving. The Chromath adapted as always, but this time something was different. They couldn't find a pattern. Human tactics changed constantly. One moment they fought in teams, the next alone. Sometimes they made noise, sometimes complete silence. Sometimes they held positions. Sometimes they retreated for no apparent reason. The hive mind that made the Chromath so effective was struggling. It needed predictability to adapt. Humans refused to be predictable. On Level 7's central hub, Taman's team faced the biggest challenge. A Chromath queen had established herself there, coordinating the invasion. She was massive, intelligent, and heavily guarded. Taking her out might break the entire attack. Taman's team of 20 humans faced 200 Chromath warriors. The odds were impossible. Perfect. Remember the Alamo? Taman asked his team over their private channel. We lost the Alamo, someone replied, but we won the war. Sometimes a last stand is about buying time, not surviving. Are we ready? Ready, they all confirmed. They charged the central hub with everything they had. Not a careful tactical assault, not a strategic advance, an all-out desperate, absolutely human charge. They fired every weapon, threw every grenade, used every trick they knew, and they sang. They sang old Earth battle songs as they fought. The Chromath were confused. This wasn't tactics. This was madness. But it was effective madness. The Queen, startled by the chaos, retreated deeper into the hub. Her guards rushed to protect her, abandoning their forward positions. That was when the other human teams struck. While everyone was distracted by Taemin's suicidal charge, 20 other teams hit the Chromath from every other direction. The hive mind, focused on the loud, obvious threat, missed the quiet, dangerous ones. Within minutes, the Chromath forces on level 7 collapsed. The Queen was injured, her guards scattered. She retreated back to her ships with the survivors. Taemin survived, though barely. When the Vralkari reinforcements finally arrived at level 7, they found humans sitting among the wreckage, sharing rations and patching each other's wounds. "You were ordered not to deploy," Thex said when he arrived to inspect the scene. "Were we?" Taemin asked innocently. "Sorry. Must have been communication interference." Thex looked at the destroyed Chromath positions, at the relatively few human casualties, at the improvised tactics that had worked when nothing else had. Then he did something surprising. He laughed, a deep rumbling laugh that shook his massive frame. "You humans fight like nothing I have ever seen. No honor, no formation, no rules. Just chaos and stubbornness and impossible victories. That's the nicest thing anyone said about us all week," Taemin replied. The battle for Theta Station continued for another day, but the momentum had shifted. Other species began copying human tactics. Small teams, unpredictable movements, creative thinking. The Chromath, for all their adaptation, couldn't handle organized chaos. When the station was finally secure, the galaxy had learned something important. Humans weren't strong like the Vralkari. They weren't fast like the Quillen. They didn't have advanced technology like the Shrek. But they had something else. Something that couldn't be easily categorized or predicted. They had the ability to survive against all odds. News of the human victories spread across the galaxy faster than light. At first, many species didn't believe it. Humans, the weak newcomers, had stopped the Chromath when traditional forces failed? Impossible. But the battle recordings didn't lie. Ship logs didn't lie. The survivors who had fought alongside humans certainly didn't lie. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time, when the human delegation arrived, the atmosphere was completely different. Species that had ignored them before now watched with keen interest, some with admiration, some with concern, a few with fear. Heywan noticed the change immediately. "They're not looking at us like pets anymore," she whispered to Daeho. "No," he agreed. "Now they're not sure what to think of us." The council wanted answers. They wanted to understand how humans fought. More importantly, they wanted to know if this was repeatable or just luck. Heywan had brought someone who could explain. Nari was a historian from Earth, an expert in human warfare and evolution. She looked nervous standing before the assembled alien species, but her voice was steady. "You asked me to explain how humans fight," Nari began. "But to understand that, you need to understand where humans come from." She activated a holographic display showing Earth. "This is our homeworld. It looks peaceful, doesn't it? But Earth has tried to kill humanity since the day we evolved. Ice ages that covered continents. Predators that saw us as food. Diseases that wiped out entire populations. Volcanic eruptions, floods, droughts, earthquakes. Our planet was not kind to us." The aliens watched, fascinated. Nari continued. "Most species here evolved as apex predators or developed natural defenses. Thick armor, venom, claws, size. Humans had none of that. We were weak, slow, and had no natural weapons. By all logic, we should have gone extinct. But you didn't," one alien observer noted. "No. Because we learned to adapt. We couldn't outrun predators, so we outlasted them. We chased prey until they collapsed from exhaustion. We called it persistence hunting. We couldn't survive cold, so we learned to make fire and clothes. We couldn't fight large animals alone, so we learned to work in groups. Every weakness forced us to become creative." She showed images of human history, primitive tools becoming advanced technology, small tribes becoming vast civilizations. We survived by changing, by trying new things, by refusing to give up no matter how bad things looked. That became part of our nature. An elder from the crystalline Shrek species spoke up. "But many species adapt. What makes humans special?" "The speed," Nari replied. "And the variety." "When the Chromath adapted their tactics, how long did it take?" "Hours," Admiral Vox admitted. "Maybe a full day for major changes. Humans adapt in minutes." sometimes seconds. Every human soldier is trained to think independently, to make decisions, to try something new if the old way isn't working. We don't wait for commands from a hive mind or a central authority. We improvise. She pulled up footage from the Theta Station battle. Look at Lieutenant Taman's squad. They changed their approach 17 times in 3 hours. Different tactics, different formations, different strategies. Some worked, some didn't. They didn't care. They just kept trying new things until something worked. The council chambers buzzed with discussion. This was making sense to them now. Humans weren't better warriors. They were better survivors. And in a universe full of threats, survival skills mattered. HFY stood to speak. You've all built your military doctrines around your strengths. The Vralkari use overwhelming force. The Quillen use speed and coordination. The Shrek use superior technology. These are all valid approaches, but they're predictable. The Chromath learned to counter them because they follow patterns. She gestured to the humans in the room. We don't have a doctrine. We have options. Hundreds of them. Thousands. We'll try anything that might work. That's what happens when you spend millions of years barely surviving. You learn that there's no such thing as a stupid idea if it keeps you alive. Thek spoke from his seat. You're saying your weakness is actually your strength? Yes, HFY replied. We're not strong, so we learn to fight smart. We're not naturally armored, so we learn to avoid hits instead of taking them. We die easily, so we learn to be very, very good at not dying. The council debated for hours. Some species argued that human tactics were dishonorable or chaotic. Others pointed out that honor didn't matter if you lost. Eventually, they reached a decision. The humans would not just remain in the defense force. They would help reshape it. Jinwoo, a human strategic advisor, was given access to military planning. His first suggestion shocked everyone. Stop thinking about wars as battles between forces, he explained. Start thinking about them as problems that need creative solutions. Every problem has multiple solutions. Try them all. He helped establish what they called chaos coordinators. These were humans embedded in mixed species units. Their job wasn't to command. It was to suggest alternatives when traditional tactics failed. To ask, what if we tried this instead? To encourage creative thinking. The results were immediate. Mixed units with human advisors performed better against the Chromath. They adapted faster, tried more varied approaches, and won battles that should have been impossible. But the most important change happened in how species worked together. Before humans arrived, each species fought in their own way, only coordinating at the highest levels. Now they learned to blend tactics, to surprise enemies with unexpected combinations. A Vralkari heavy assault supported by human guerrilla teams, Quillen scouts using human deception techniques, Shrek technology enhanced by human improvisation. The whole became greater than the sum of its parts. The Chromath were still dangerous, still adapting, still winning some battles. But they were no longer unstoppable. The galaxy had learned something crucial from humanity. Diversity wasn't just about having different species in the council. It was about having different ways of thinking, different approaches to problems. At the end of the council session, Thex approached HFY privately. I was wrong about your species, he said bluntly. I thought strength was everything. But I see now that survival requires more than strength. We're not better than you, HFY replied. Just different. That's the point. The galaxy needs all kinds of strength. Still, Thex said, I am sorry for doubting you, for underestimating your warrior, Deho, for not seeing your value sooner. It was a real apology from a proud warrior species. HFY bowed respectfully. Apology accepted. Now let's finish this war together. As the human delegation left the council chambers that day, they walked with their heads high, not because they had won some victory over the other species, but because they had finally proven they belonged. They were part of the galaxy now. Not guests, not newcomers, partners. The war had raged for 3 months. The Chromath controlled 12 systems now, and their forces showed no signs of stopping. The galaxy was losing. Every battle was hard fought, and even with human tactics helping, the victories were never easy. The council knew they needed to end this decisively. That meant attacking the Chromath homeworld itself. Admiral Vox assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, 200 ships from 30 different species. The plan was simple and brutal. Overwhelm the Chromath homeworld with firepower, destroy their ability to coordinate, end the war through superior force. But Commander Sora had doubts. She met with Haywan the night before the attack. "Something feels wrong," Sora said. "The Chromath are insects, yes, but they're also intelligent. This whole war, they've been adapting, learning. Why would they attack the galaxy so aggressively? What do they really want? Does it matter?" Haywan asked. "They're killing people. We have to stop them." "But what if we're missing something important?" Haywan considered this. It was very human thinking. Looking for alternatives, questioning assumptions. "What are you suggesting?" "Let me take a small team to the Chromath homeworld first. Before the fleet attacks, just to gather intelligence. Maybe we'll find something useful." It was risky. Incredibly risky. But Haywan trusted Sora's instincts. She brought the idea to Vox, who surprisingly agreed. "The humans have earned the right to try their own approaches," he said. "But be quick. The attack begins in 48 hours, whether you return or not." Sora took a small ship with a hand-picked crew. Deho insisted on coming as security. Jisoo came as science officer. Young Jae came to handle any technical problems. It was like the original diplomatic team, but heading into enemy territory instead of a council meeting. They approached the Chromath homeworld carefully, using stealth technology and flying through asteroid fields to avoid detection. The planet was teeming with activity, millions of Chromath ships in orbit. But as they got closer, Jisoo noticed something odd. "There are two different ship designs," she said, analyzing her scans. "The ones that attacked us and another type. The second type is staying near the planet, not joining the war fleet." "Two factions?" Deho suggested. "Maybe. We need to get closer." They landed on the dark side of the planet in a remote region. The Chromath didn't notice one small ship among thousands. From the surface, they could intercept communications. Young Jae worked his magic with the equipment, translating the alien signals. What they discovered changed everything. The Chromath weren't one unified species. They were split into two groups: the aggressive military faction that attacked the galaxy, and a peaceful civilian faction that opposed the war. The military faction had seized power 2 years ago and forced the civilians into submission. The attacks on the galaxy weren't about conquest. They were about resources. The military faction needed them to maintain control. "The civilian Chromath are prisoners in their own home," Jisoo said, reading the translated messages. "They've been trying to send signals for help, but the military faction blocks all outgoing communications." Sora made a decision. "We need to contact them." It took 6 hours of careful work, but Young Jae managed to open a secure channel to the civilian faction's leaders. The conversation that followed was tense. The civilian Chromath didn't trust aliens. The military faction had told them the galaxy wanted to exterminate all Chromath. Haywan, speaking from the fleet, negotiated carefully. "We don't want to destroy your species. We want to end the attacks. If your civilian faction will help us stop the military faction, we can end this war without destroying your world." The civilian leader, whose name translated roughly as Keeper of Peace, was skeptical. "Why would the galaxy show us mercy? We have killed thousands of your people." "Because holding entire species responsible for the actions of their leaders isn't justice," Haywan replied. "Humans learned that lesson the hard way in our own history. We fought terrible wars among ourselves. We know the difference between soldiers following orders and the people who give those orders." This concept was foreign to many species in the galaxy. Most races had unified governments and hive minds or collective consciousness. But humans understood civil war, rebellion, and internal conflict. They understood that not everyone in a species agreed with their leaders. After hours of discussion, the Keeper of Peace agreed to help. The civilian Chromath would sabotage the military faction's command structure. In exchange, the galaxy would not destroy the Chromath homeworld. They would help rebuild after the military faction was defeated. The plan went into motion. Sora's team stayed on the planet, working with the civilian faction. They helped coordinate the rebellion, using human experience with resistance movements. Meanwhile, Haywan presented the situation to Admiral Vox and the Council. Some species wanted to attack anyway. They didn't trust the Chromath. But Thex surprisingly supported the human plan. "The humans have shown us new ways to think. Perhaps this is another lesson, that enemies can become allies if we give them the chance." The final battle for the Chromath homeworld was unlike anything the galaxy expected. The civilian Chromath shut down military communications and disabled their weapons systems from the inside. The Galaxy fleet arrived not as destroyers but as peacekeepers. The military faction tried to fight, but without support from their own people, they collapsed within hours. The war ended not with destruction, but with cooperation. A new Chromath government formed, led by the civilian faction. They agreed to pay reparations and join the Galactic Council as provisional members. The military leaders were tried for their crimes against both the Galaxy and their own people. 3 months after the war ended, the Council held a special ceremony. Deho's blade from the Duel, the one that had started everything, was placed in the Hall of Honor. Representatives from every species attended. Thex himself gave the speech. This blade reminds us of an important truth. She sliced his palm in Duel, and humanity showed the Galaxy true power. Not the power of strength or technology or numbers, the power of thinking differently, of refusing to give up, of seeing possibilities where others see only problems. He looked at the human delegation. We invited humans to join us 3 years ago because we pitied them. We thought we were being generous to a weak species. But they have taught us that weakness and strength are not opposites. They are different paths to the same goal: survival, victory, peace. HFY stood with her team. Deho, still bearing scars from the Duel. Sora, decorated as a hero. Jisoo, now a chief science advisor. Young Jae, whose engineering innovations were spreading across the galaxy. They had come so far from that first council meeting where everyone doubted them. But the best part wasn't the recognition or the honor. It was what happened after the ceremony. Young Jae worked with engineers from 6 different species on a new project. Jisoo taught cultural exchange classes to alien students. Commander Sora trained mixed-species military units in creative tactics, and HFY negotiated treaties that emphasized cooperation over competition. The galaxy had changed, not because humans conquered it or proved they were better, but because they showed that being different wasn't a weakness, that survival sometimes mattered more than strength, that the best solutions often came from unexpected places. On Earth, billions watched the ceremony with pride. Humanity had gone to the stars uncertain if they belonged. They stayed because they proved everyone belonged. Every species, every perspective, every different way of thinking made the galaxy stronger. Deho stood looking at his blade in its case. That was a crazy day, he said to HFY. Which day? The duel, the battles, the negotiations? All of them. This whole journey has been crazy, HFY smiled. That's very human of us, walking into impossible situations and somehow making them work. Think they'll ever stop underestimating us? Probably not. But that's okay. Being underestimated is kind of our thing. We work better when no one expects us to succeed. They walked out of the Hall of Honor together, 2 humans among thousands of aliens, but they didn't feel small anymore. They felt like they belonged, like they had found their place in the vast galaxy. Not through force or superior technology, but through the simple human refusal to give up. The galaxy had learned something from humanity. And humanity had learned something from the galaxy, that together, with all their differences, they were stronger than any of them could be alone. That was the true power. Not winning duels or battles, but building something better together. The ceremony ended. The dignitaries departed. But the real work continued. Building a galaxy where every species contributed their unique strengths. Where diversity was celebrated, not feared. Where even the smallest, weakest newcomer had something valuable to offer. Because in the end, that was what humanity showed them. That true power wasn't about being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. It was about never giving up, about adapting, about finding ways to survive and thrive against all odds. It was about being human,